The Galactic Empire was vast, a dark force that ruled countless worlds across the stars. Its fleets were unmatched in size and strength, its armies feared by every species in the galaxy. For years, the Empire had crushed planet after planet, bending civilizations to their will. Every planet they targeted fell without much resistance, until they found Earth. At first, the Empire saw Earth as nothing more than another small primitive world. They had sent their scout ships to observe, to gather data. Earth was a backward planet, stuck in the early stages of space travel, barely out of their atmosphere, and only beginning to understand the universe around them. Their technology was far behind the mighty Empire's. For the Empire, it should have been an easy conquest. But there was something about Earth that intrigued them. The people of Earth were resilient, never quick to give up. They had survived countless wars, natural disasters, and even their own flaws. Their history was filled with stories of incredible courage, even in the face of overwhelming odds. The Empire had heard whispers of this planet's potential, but they dismissed them. After all, what could these humans possibly do against the might of the Galactic Empire? One day, the Empire decided to make their move. A fleet of ships, hundreds of thousands strong, arrived in Earth's orbit. These ships were colossal, each one larger than any structure humanity had ever built. The Empire's flagship, the Dreadstorm, hovered above the planet, a dark shadow blotting out the sun. A transmission was sent to Earth, a simple message carried through the stars. To the people of this small planet, this is the Galactic Empire. Surrender your planet and all its resources to us. Your resistance is futile. This is your first and only warning. The message echoed through the airwaves, reaching every corner of the world. Earth's leaders, stunned at the scale of the threat, gathered in secret meetings. It was hard to fathom. The Empire had given them one warning. Just one. There was no room for negotiation, no time for second chances. If they did nothing, Earth would be destroyed. As the world leaders debated, a sense of fear and helplessness began to settle in. But not everyone felt that way. Across the planet, ordinary people began to whisper stories. Stories of their ancestors who had stood tall against impossible odds. Stories of how humans had once fought against tyrants and won. Stories of survival. In one small office, a group of scientists and military experts huddled around a table, discussing their options. They knew the odds. The Empire's fleet was powerful, their weapons advanced, and their forces nearly unbeatable. Yet, deep down, they couldn't shake the feeling that Earth was not the helpless world it appeared to be. There had to be something the humans could do, something the Empire hadn't considered. And then one of them, an engineer named Riley, known for his unconventional ideas, spoke up. He had been studying the transmission the Empire had sent, listening carefully to every word. The more he listened, the more he realized that the Empire was not as invincible as they seemed. They had made one crucial mistake. They underestimated Earth. They underestimated humans. Riley's voice was calm, but filled with determination as he turned to the others. We have one chance to show them what Earth is made of. We can't back down. We have to send them a message they'll never forget. The others looked at him, unsure of what he meant. Riley smiled and continued. We can't fight them the way they expect. We need to outthink them, outsmart them, and make them realize that they've made a grave mistake by coming here. The room fell silent. Could it be possible? Could humanity really do something to stop the Empire? As Riley began outlining his plan, the others listened intently. It wasn't about brute force or advanced technology. It was about using Earth's greatest weapon, human ingenuity, the ability to adapt, to innovate, and to overcome. Riley's plan would disrupt the Empire's technology, their command systems, and their ships in ways they never expected. It was a risk, but it was their only shot. Back in space, the Empire waited, confident that Earth would surrender. But Riley's words echoed in the minds of Earth's leaders and scientists. We're not giving up. This is our only warning. The Empire had underestimated Earth. They thought it would be easy. But what they didn't know was that humanity had been preparing for this moment for years. They had seen the signs, studied the stars, and learned from their past mistakes. The people of Earth were ready, not just to defend their planet, but to show the Empire that there was something more powerful than their fleets. There was the will to survive, the spirit of humanity, and that spirit would soon make itself known. The Empire's fleet loomed over Earth like a dark cloud. The immense ships in orbit cast shadows over the planet's surface, their weapons charged and ready. On the ground, people looked up, fear in their eyes, as they saw the invaders' ships filling the sky. The message from the Galactic Empire had been clear: surrender or be destroyed. But Earth's leaders had made a decision. They wouldn't just bow down. Riley's plan, the one that relied on Earth's resourcefulness and determination, had been set into motion. The world's best scientists, engineers, and military leaders worked together in secret, determined to give humanity its best chance to fight back. The first attack came early in the morning. The Empire's ships opened fire, their weapons aimed at the most populous cities. Massive beams of energy shot down from the sky, carving through buildings, roads, and everything in their path. People ran for cover, their lives suddenly at the mercy of forces they couldn't understand. The destruction was overwhelming, and the world seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the inevitable end. Yet, as the explosions rocked the cities, something strange began to happen. The Empire's ships started to malfunction. Their powerful weapons, which should have destroyed everything in an instant, suddenly stopped working. The lights on their ships flickered, and the commands from their commanders went unanswered. For a brief moment, there was confusion. In the command center of the Empire's flagship, the Dreadstorm, General Dreelan looked over his monitors in disbelief. The Empire's technology was the finest in the galaxy. How could this be happening? Their sensors were glitching. Their targeting systems were going haywire. Their weapons were losing power. What's going on? General Dreelan shouted to his crew. His voice was sharp, filled with panic. One of the officers, a young technician, stammered, "Sir, we're experiencing widespread system failures. The energy levels are fluctuating. Weapons are offline. We don't know why." "What?" Dreelan's voice grew more agitated. He turned to his screen, eyes scanning the data. Nothing made sense. Earth wasn't supposed to be able to do this. They were a primitive planet. Back on Earth, the people were starting to realize that the invaders weren't as unstoppable as they had thought. The first signs of the Empire's struggle were small at first, unnoticed by most. But Riley, who had been tracking the Empire's transmissions, knew something was happening. He'd expected this. He'd planned for this. He had predicted that the Empire's reliance on technology would be their downfall. While their machines and ships were powerful, they were also incredibly vulnerable to disruption. Riley had spent years studying the Empire's systems and learned everything he could about their weaknesses. Earth's tech may not have been as advanced, but humanity had something the Empire didn't: creativity. Riley's plan was simple but brilliant. Using Earth's vast networks, they sent out a series of subtle electromagnetic pulses, EMPs, designed to target the Empire's ships. These pulses wouldn't destroy their technology outright, but they would cause just enough interference to make their systems falter. With the right timing, it would cause chaos across the Empire's fleet. As the pulses were activated, the results were immediate. One by one, the Empire's ships began to lose control. Their navigation systems failed, sending them off course. Energy shields flickered and then went dark. The mighty Empire's invincible force was no longer so invincible. On the surface, Earth's military forces began to move. Tanks, planes, and soldiers armed with technology that had been optimized for these exact situations sprang into action. They attacked the Empire's vulnerable spots: communication towers, weak points in the Empire's ships, and supply lines. There was no grand space battle, no giant warships battling in the sky. Instead, it was human ingenuity, applied on the ground and in the air, that began to shift the tide. Across the world, soldiers took to the streets, fighting with a determination born from desperation. They knew they were up against a superior force, but they also knew they had something the Empire couldn't understand. They had the power of human resilience, the ability to fight back, no matter the odds. In the Empire's fleet, General Drillin was furious. He had never encountered anything like this before. Earth was not supposed to be able to resist. His ships were supposed to be unstoppable, and yet here they were, failing. "We are being attacked from within," Drillin shouted, pacing the command center. He couldn't understand it. How could a primitive planet do this? How could they have disrupted their perfect systems? He didn't realize yet that the disruption was only the beginning. The Empire had underestimated Earth. They had made one crucial mistake. They thought humanity was weak. They thought the people of Earth would surrender without a fight. But now, with their technology failing and their plans crumbling, the Empire was beginning to realize something. The humans on Earth weren't as defenseless as they thought. They were resourceful, determined, and willing to fight for their survival. And the Empire had only just begun to feel the consequences of their mistake. The Empire's fleet was in disarray. Their once unbeatable technology, so advanced and superior, was failing them. Ships that had once glided through space effortlessly now drifted off course, their systems crippled by Earth's unexpected tactics. The people of Earth, who had seemed so insignificant to the Empire, were showing a resilience that stunned even the greatest minds of the Empire. General Drillin sat at his command console, staring at the images of his ships flickering and failing. His face was a mask of frustration and disbelief. Earth's resistance was more than just a problem. It was a serious threat to his mission. He had underestimated the humans, and now it was too late. They were fighting back in ways he never imagined. On the planet below, Riley was already planning their next move. The first wave of EMP pulses had done their job, but the Empire was regrouping. They would adapt, repair their systems, and come back stronger. Riley knew that this moment was crucial. They needed to keep up the pressure. If they let up, the Empire might recover and crush them with their superior firepower. Riley gathered the team of scientists and military leaders who had helped him bring the plan to life. They were in a hidden bunker beneath a mountain, away from the eyes of the invaders. Their mission was clear. They needed to launch a full-scale offensive against the Empire's fleet, while their systems were still vulnerable. This was humanity's chance to strike back. "We've shown them that they're not invincible," Riley said as he addressed the room. "But we can't stop now. The Empire will only get stronger if we give them time to repair. We need to hit them where it hurts, their core command systems." One of the military officers, Colonel Harris, nodded in agreement. "We've had success with the EMP pulses, but that's just the beginning. The Empire's ships have a central command hub on their flagship, the Dreadstorm. If we can take that down, we'll disable their entire fleet." Riley's eyes glinted with determination. "Exactly. The Dreadstorm is their brain. Without it, they'll be scattered. But getting to it won't be easy. We need to get past their defenses, which means we'll have to be clever." The plan was simple but risky. Earth's military would launch a diversionary strike, pulling the Empire's attention away from the central command systems, while a small team of elite soldiers would infiltrate the Dreadstorm. The team would have to be fast. One mistake, and they'd be destroyed before they even got close to their target. The operation was named Echo Strike. As the plan took shape, Riley and his team made the necessary preparations. They would need everything Earth had to offer. Every bit of ingenuity, every resource, and every ounce of strength. But even more than that, they needed the heart of humanity. The will to fight. The will to survive. On Earth's surface, the military forces began their assault. Ships lifted off, their engines roaring as they pierced the sky. Fighter jets streaked through the air, launching missiles that exploded in brilliant flashes against the Empire's ships. Earth's forces weren't as advanced as the Empire's, but they were making up for it with creativity and sheer determination. They knew they didn't have the luxury of time. Back on the Dreadstorm, General Drillin was still in the midst of coordinating repairs when the first wave of human attacks hit. His fleet was under fire, but his focus remained on finding the cause of the earlier failure. His ships had been damaged, and he couldn't afford to ignore the obvious threat Earth posed. He called for reinforcements, but the more he tried to regain control, the more the humans seemed to slip through his grasp. "Where are the reinforcements?" Drillin growled, slamming his fist on the console. "Why can't we stop them?" As the battle raged above, the team chosen for the infiltration mission was preparing in secret. They had been given a ship, a small and unassuming craft, designed to blend in with the Empire's fleet. Its systems were basic, meant to avoid detection, and the crew aboard was made up of the best Earth had to offer: the sharpest soldiers, the most skilled engineers, and one of Earth's top hackers. Their mission was dangerous. If they were caught, they would be destroyed in an instant. But this was the only chance Earth had to cripple the Empire. They had trained for this moment, honed their skills in preparation for the day when Earth would face its greatest test. The small ship approached the Dreadstorm, invisible to the Empire's sensors for the time being. The plan was to board the flagship and get to the heart of its operations, the command center. There, they would plant a virus that Riley's team had developed, a virus capable of completely disabling the Empire's systems. It would spread through the entire fleet, rendering them powerless. As the ship got closer to its target, the crew remained quiet. The only sounds were the hum of the engines and the occasional beep of the control panels. Their mission was perilous, but the stakes couldn't be higher. If they succeeded, Earth might have a fighting chance. If they failed, the Empire would have no reason to hold back. But there was no turning back now. The time to fight had come. The small craft carrying the elite team of Earth's best soldiers glided silently through space, approaching the Dreadstorm, the heart of the Empire's fleet. The atmosphere inside the ship was tense. Everyone knew how important this mission was. If they failed, Earth would be at the mercy of the Empire, with no way to fight back. But if they succeeded, they could cripple the invaders and turn the tide of the war in humanity's favor. Riley had stayed behind on Earth, coordinating the battle from a hidden command center, but he kept in close contact with the team. He had full faith in them. They had trained for this moment for weeks, learning the layout of the Dreadstorm from every piece of intel they had gathered. The Empire might have the most powerful fleet in the galaxy, but Earth had something the Empire could never understand: the will to survive. Inside the ship, the team was preparing for their mission. Captain Leah Morrison, the leader of the infiltration team, stood in front of her team, giving them one final speech before they entered the most dangerous part of their mission. "Listen up, everyone," she said, her voice calm but firm. "We know the odds are stacked against us. We're going in alone, with no backup. We won't have any time for mistakes, and we can't afford to hesitate. But we've come this far because we believe in this mission. We believe in Earth, and we're going to succeed." Her words were met with quiet nods of agreement from the rest of the team. They had trained for weeks, using every advantage they could think of. They had learned the inner workings of the Empire's technology, studied its weaknesses, and prepared for the worst. Now they would have to rely on their skills, teamwork, and the strength of their resolve to make it through. "We'll make it," Lieutenant James Allen, the team's hacker, said, glancing at the others. "We've got this. Riley's virus will work." The virus Riley had developed was the key to their mission's success. It was designed to bypass the Empire's security protocols and infiltrate the Dreadstorm's central systems. Once it was planted in the flagship's command center, it would spread to the rest of the Empire's fleet, rendering their weapons, shields, and communication systems useless. The Empire would be left blind, vulnerable, and disorganized. But the virus was not a simple task to install. They would have to make their way deep into the Dreadstorm, past multiple layers of security, to reach the command center. And all the while, the Empire would be doing everything in its power to stop them. As the small ship neared the Dreadstorm, the crew focused on the task ahead. They would need to avoid detection at all costs. The Dreadstorm was surrounded by Empire fighter ships and automated drones, all on high alert after the recent attacks on their fleet. The slightest misstep could bring the whole mission crashing down. Captain Morrison nodded to Lieutenant Allen, who was working furiously at his console. "Is the jamming system active?" "Yes, Captain. We're on their radar now, but the ship's internal sensors won't detect us." "Good. Let's move quickly." The craft carefully maneuvered through the space around the Dreadstorm, its sleek design making it almost impossible to detect by the Empire's advanced radar. The team's plan was simple: get in, plant the virus, and get out. But simple plans in the face of danger were rarely easy. As they approached the flagship's outer hull, Captain Morrison gave the order: "Prepare to board." The ship's engines powered down, and the team activated their stealth suits, specialized gear that would make them invisible to most detection systems. They used small, efficient grappling devices to latch onto the ship's surface, making their way to a rarely used entry point, a maintenance hatch located far from the command center. Their steps were silent, their movements careful. They knew that the Empire would be watching for any sign of intrusion. But so far, everything was going according to plan. Once inside the flagship, the team quickly split into smaller groups. Morrison and Sergeant Kyle Harris would head to the command center, while Allen and Corporal Maria Ortiz would handle the virus deployment. They knew the layout of the ship like the back of their hands, but that didn't make it any less dangerous. "Stay alert," Morrison whispered as they moved through the dimly lit corridors. "The Empire might not know we're here yet, but it won't take them long to figure it out." As they navigated the ship, they couldn't help but notice how quiet it was. The halls of the Dreadstorm were eerily empty, a sign that the Empire's leadership was probably occupied dealing with the attacks on their fleet. It was an advantage, but also a warning. There was no telling when they might run into the Empire's troops. "I don't like this," Sergeant Harris muttered, glancing around the corner. "It's too quiet." Morrison nodded, her instincts on high alert. "Stay focused. We're almost there." Meanwhile, Allen and Ortiz were working their way through the flagship's lower levels, avoiding security patrols and hacking into the mainframe. The tension in the air was thick, but they knew they had a job to do. Every second counted. In the distance, they could hear the unmistakable sound of Empire soldiers moving down the hall. The team froze, their breaths held. They had to make it past this last hurdle. "On my mark," Morrison whispered, preparing to move. 3, 2, 1, go. They burst forward, moving fast, knowing that the slightest delay could be their last. The Empire was closing in, but the team was determined to make it. The cold, metallic halls of the Dreadstorm seemed endless as Captain Morrison's team moved quickly through the ship's labyrinthine corridors. Their hearts pounded in their chests, adrenaline pumping through their veins. Every step brought them closer to their goal, but also closer to discovery. The Empire's soldiers were just around the corner, their boots echoing off the walls. Morrison gestured for the team to crouch down, taking cover behind a large storage crate. She held her breath as the footsteps grew louder. They were getting closer, too close. The team stayed still, not daring to make a sound. It was moments like this that tested their resolve. They couldn't afford to be caught now. The mission was too important. The footsteps passed. The soldiers had moved on, unaware of the intruders just a few meters away. Morrison exhaled slowly, relief flooding her chest. But there was no time to relax. They had to keep moving. "We're almost at the command center," Morrison whispered, her voice barely audible. "Just keep it together for a little longer." Her team nodded, and they moved again, this time with more urgency. Every moment counted. They had to plant the virus before the Empire figured out what was happening. Meanwhile, on the lower levels of the ship, Lieutenant Allen and Corporal Ortiz were racing against the clock as well. They had reached the ship's mainframe, and Allen was working furiously at the terminal, his fingers flying across the keyboard. "We're in," he said, his voice tight with concentration. "I'm uploading the virus now." Ortiz kept watch, her eyes scanning the darkened hallway for any signs of trouble. She could hear the hum of the Empire's technology, and it made her nervous. They had to be quick. The virus was their last hope for turning the tide of this battle. As Allen worked, Ortiz could feel the weight of the moment. Earth was counting on them. The human race was counting on them. They had come so far, through the attacks, through the resistance, and now they had to finish what they had started. "It's almost done," Allen said, his voice tense. "Just a few more seconds." Ortiz's eyes darted around, her hand gripping her weapon. She could sense the tension building in the air. Any second now, someone could discover them. But Allen was right. They were almost there. The virus was their weapon. It was designed to penetrate the Empire's advanced defenses and spread like wildfire through their fleet. If they succeeded, it would shut down the Empire's systems, giving Earth's forces a fighting chance. But if they failed, Ortiz didn't want to think about failure. She couldn't afford to. The Empire had already underestimated them once. They couldn't let that happen again. Finally, with a soft peep, Allen sat back. "It's done," he said, relief flooding his voice. "The virus is in." Ortiz gave a small, triumphant smile. "Let's get out of here before they notice." As the team moved out of the mainframe room, Morrison's team was nearly at the command center. They were close now, just one final stretch of the ship standing between them and their goal. But as they rounded a corner, they encountered something they hadn't expected: a squad of Empire soldiers, guarding the entrance to the command center. Morrison's heart skipped a beat. There were too many of them. They would never be able to get through without a fight. But a fight would make noise. A fight would alert the Empire to their presence, and everything would fall apart. She motioned for the team to stop. They had to think quickly. "We need to distract them," Morrison whispered. "We can't fight them head-on." Sergeant Harris, always the strategist, nodded. "I've got an idea." He reached into his pack and pulled out a small device, a makeshift smoke grenade. It wasn't much, but it might be enough to buy them the time they needed. He set the device on the floor and activated it. Almost immediately, thick smoke began to pour from it, filling the corridor and blinding the soldiers. "Now," Morrison shouted. The team sprinted forward, moving through the smoke as quickly and quietly as possible. They couldn't afford to slow down. They needed to get into the command center and complete the mission. The smoke began to dissipate, but by then, the team had already reached the command center's door. Morrison quickly inserted a hacking device into the lock, and the door slid open with a soft hiss. Inside, the control panels blinked with activity, and the officers inside were distracted, trying to deal with the chaos outside. Morrison's team slipped inside, and she immediately moved to the central terminal. "We've got this," she whispered. "We're almost there." The terminal was unguarded, as the officers were busy coordinating the response to the smoke and the attack. Morrison's heart raced as she plugged in the virus. The screen flickered for a moment before it began to display the virus progress. But as the virus began its work, the lights suddenly flickered, and an alarm blared throughout the ship. "They've detected us," Harris shouted. "We've got to move now." The team rushed to the exit, but as they made their way back toward the hallway, they heard the unmistakable sound of Empire soldiers running toward them. The countdown had begun. They had moments before the ship's security systems locked down completely. "Hurry," Morrison shouted. "We don't have time." They sprinted back to the maintenance hatch, their breaths coming fast. The walls seemed to close in on them, but they didn't stop. The ship's systems were already starting to fail, just as Riley had promised. The virus was working. They could hear the scrambling of the Empire's officers as their control systems began to shut down. The team was nearly at the exit when the first explosion rocked the ship. The rumble of the explosion echoed throughout the corridors of the Dreadstorm, shaking the ship like a giant had punched it. The shockwave rippled through the metal walls, knocking crew members off their feet and causing alarms to blare louder. Captain Morrison and her team stumbled as they made their way down the hallway, the deafening sound of alarms and the ship shaking making it hard to think. But they had no time to waste. The Empire's forces would be closing in soon, and they needed to escape before they were caught. "Move," Morrison barked. She didn't need to say more. The team had practiced for moments like this. Quick, efficient, and silent. They sprinted down the narrow hallways, turning corners, diving under control panels, and dodging open fire doors that slammed shut behind them. Every corner was a potential ambush, but the team was focused. They couldn't let the virus progress go to waste. Ortiz, at the rear, glanced over her shoulder, her eyes scanning for any signs of pursuit. There was no sign of the Empire soldiers yet, but she knew they were coming. The team had to stay ahead. Behind them, the explosions had started to cause chaos. Sparks shot out from exposed circuits, fires broke out in the maintenance rooms, and the lights flickered, plunging them into brief darkness before coming back to life. The ship was coming apart, and it was only a matter of time before the Dreadstorm's systems completely failed. They reached the maintenance hatch, their only exit route. But as Morrison approached the door, she saw the unmistakable silhouette of a soldier on the other side, blocking their path. The soldier hadn't noticed them yet, but it wouldn't be long before he did. "We can't go back," Morrison muttered under her breath, eyes darting around the hallway for a way out. Harris, always quick to think, reached into his pack and pulled out a small device, a grenade that would temporarily disable the soldier's armor. He silently counted to 3, then tossed it down the hallway. The grenade exploded with a soft pop, releasing a burst of energy that knocked the soldier off his feet. "We need to go now," Harris said, rushing toward the hatch. They quickly ducked inside the maintenance shaft, using the darkness as cover. The cramped space was far from comfortable, but it was their best chance. The team crawled through the shaft, every movement causing metal panels to creak and groan. The sound of Empire soldiers outside grew louder as they searched the ship for intruders. Morrison's team had to move faster. They couldn't risk getting trapped. After what felt like an eternity, they reached the end of the shaft. The hatch was slightly ajar, giving them a glimpse of the outside. Freedom. But the space around the exit was filled with smoke and fire, making it impossible to tell if the area was clear. Morrison glanced at her team. "We're going to have to make a run for it." She didn't wait for a response. With a determined expression, she pushed the hatch open. The team followed quickly, rushing into the smoke-filled area. The air was thick with the scent of burning metal and fuel, and the heat was unbearable. They could barely see more than a few feet in front of them, but Morrison kept her focus, scanning for any sign of the enemy. The Dreadstorm was in chaos. They sprinted toward the docking bay, where their escape ship, the Phoenix, was waiting. The sound of running footsteps behind them made Morrison's heart race. They were being chased. But just as the Empire soldiers emerged from the smoke, the Phoenix's engines roared to life, and a bright beam of light shot through the darkness. "Go, go, go," Morrison shouted. The Phoenix lifted off the ground, the engines creating a deafening roar as it soared toward the heavens. The team piled into the ship, and Morrison slammed the hatch shut. They had made it. They were out of the Dreadstorm, but the fight was far from over. As the Phoenix hurtled toward Earth, the team gathered around the central console, watching as the virus progress unfolded on the screen. The Empire's fleet was beginning to buckle under the pressure. "We did it," Ortiz said, her voice filled with disbelief. Alan leaned back in his chair, letting out a breath he didn't realize he had been holding. "Yeah, we did. But this isn't over. The Empire will retaliate, and Earth will need every ounce of strength we've got." Morrison nodded, her eyes narrowing. "We've bought them time. That's all we can do for now. But it's up to Earth to finish what we started." The team sat in silence for a moment, the weight of the mission finally settling on their shoulders. The virus was working, and the Empire's systems were beginning to fall apart. But it was only the beginning. There was still a long road ahead. Earth's forces had been given a fighting chance, but it was unclear just how long it would last. The Empire was vast, its reach nearly endless. But for the first time, Morrison allowed herself a moment of hope. They had proven that the Empire could be beaten. As the Phoenix sped toward Earth, Morrison knew one thing for sure: they would not back down. Earth was their home, and they would protect it at all costs. They had done it. They had planted the virus, and now it was up to Earth's forces to finish the job. The Phoenix's engines hummed steadily as it glided through the stars, its destination clear: Earth. The team was tired, physically and emotionally drained, but the mission was far from over. Morrison stood at the front of the ship's cockpit, her eyes fixed on the screen showing Earth's distant blue and green orb. It was a beautiful sight, but also a reminder of what was at stake. "We're almost there," Harris said, his voice low, but there was an edge to it. The weight of their success and their looming fight was heavy on all of them. "Good. Prepare for any resistance," Morrison replied, her tone firm. The Empire might have been on the ropes, but they were not the kind of force to give up easily. Even if their systems were beginning to fail, they would still fight back with everything they had. Ortiz ran her hands over the control panels, monitoring the data coming in from the virus they'd unleashed. It was still spreading across the Empire's systems, but it was slow. Too slow. The virus had done its job in weakening their enemies, but it would take time for it to completely cripple the Empire's technology. And in that time, the Empire would likely retaliate with full force. "We should have been faster," Ortiz murmured. "We did what we could," Allen replied, glancing up from the data readouts. "Earth needs this time. We bought them a window, and they're going to take it." Morrison nodded but didn't speak. She could feel the tension building in the air. They were heading into the heart of enemy territory. They were heading home to fight for their families, their planet, and that meant taking on the Empire one last time. As the Phoenix approached Earth's atmosphere, the quiet hum of the engines was interrupted by a sudden signal. An urgent alert. Morrison's eyes snapped to the screen. "What's this?" Ortiz's fingers flew over the controls as she scanned the incoming message. "It's from Earth. They've seen us coming. They're ready for the final battle." A moment of relief spread across the crew. Earth's forces had prepared. They weren't caught off guard. The message continued, showing footage of Earth's defenses. Massive shields, newly developed spacecraft, and the full might of Earth's military had been mobilized. The virus had worked. Earth had the chance to stand on equal ground with the Empire. Morrison felt a small spark of hope rise within her chest. Earth wasn't just waiting to be saved. They were fighting. They were strong. "Let's get down there and give them the support they need," Morrison said, determination in her voice. She turned toward the others. "We've done our part. Now it's time to finish it." The crew nodded and began preparations for landing. The Phoenix dropped down toward Earth, cutting through the atmosphere with its shields raised. There was no turning back now. As they neared the surface, Morrison saw the flashes of battle below. Ships from both sides clashed in the sky, massive explosions lighting up the darkened expanse. But Earth's defenses were holding strong. They had the technology, the willpower, and most importantly, the drive to protect their world. "Commander, we're receiving a call from Earth's leadership," Ortiz said. Morrison quickly activated the communication link. The face of General Jacobs appeared on the screen. He looked worn but resolute. "We're glad you made it back," General Jacobs said, his voice steady. "We've prepared as best we could, but it's going to be a long fight. The Empire won't back down easily." Morrison nodded. "We'll be right behind you. We have the virus working in our favor, but it won't be enough unless we finish this now." The general's expression tightened. "Understood. "We got one shot at this. We'll need every fighter we have to push through their fleet and reach their flagship." "We're ready," Morrison said. "Let's give Earth the victory it deserves." The Phoenix began its final descent, passing through the storm of laser fire and debris in the sky. The Empire's ships were already turning toward them, anticipating their arrival. But the humans had a new weapon: their resilience. The virus was working to bring down the Empire's systems, leaving them scrambling for a way to fight back. The final battle was fierce. Ships zipped through the atmosphere, dodging explosions, launching missiles, and firing lasers. The Phoenix, with its powerful new technology, became a crucial asset, cutting through enemy lines like a blade. The Empire's fleet was faltering. Their ships, once indomitable, were now unreliable and weak. The virus had done its job. As the Phoenix soared toward the Empire's flagship, Morrison and her crew could feel the weight of the battle in their bones. This was the last stand. If they succeeded, Earth would be free. If they failed, well, there was no time to think about failure. The Phoenix opened fire on the flagship, and explosions erupted across its surface. For the first time in a long while, the Empire seemed uncertain. The tables had turned, and Earth was now the one fighting for its future. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of battle, the Empire's flagship crumbled. The ships scattered in retreat, unable to withstand the combined might of Earth's forces and the virus that had spread throughout their systems. Earth had won. The Galactic Empire was no more. Morrison stood at the helm of the Phoenix, her eyes on the horizon. Her team had given everything. Earth was safe, and for the first time in a long time, they could breathe easy. But as the crew of the Phoenix watched Earth's skies clear, they knew one thing for certain. The fight for survival had united them all, and humanity had proven, once again, that it would never be crushed. The battle was over, but the future was just beginning.